All right, we've got some big news going on in the Middle East right now over the past several days. For those who, well, probably most people have heard by now, the U.S. assassinated the Al-Quds Force commander, the top general in Iran, Qassam Soleimani. It was a drone attack at the Baghdad airport, took him out as well as a second-in-command of the Iraqi Popular Mobilization Units, the PMU, as well as, I believe, 5 other people that are, of course, just collateral damage. So he's the top commander in Iran, top general in Iran, like I said. Pretty much the one person that the U.S. could have taken out that would pretty much guarantee violent response, retaliatory attack by Iran. So clearly looks like the push for war with Iran is making progress. Doesn't look very good. I'm actually a little surprised myself that Donald Trump actually ordered this, but he's one of the most respected generals in the region, and he has played a key role in the defeat of ISIS in both Iraq and Syria. He's trained militias in both Iraq and Syria that have pretty much come close to defeating ISIS. It also appears to be part of a ongoing series of strikes by the U.S. that started on the 29th. That's the background for this. We targeted Iraq, our own ally, which is pretty strange. I wrote a post on this at the time. U.S. wages war on Iraq in defense of ISIS terrorists in Syria, claiming to defend itself from Iran. So they claimed that there were 30 Katyusha rockets fired at a Iraqi military base that housed U.S. soldiers. It injured a couple of Iraqi soldiers, a couple of U.S. soldiers, and they claimed an American U.S. mercenary was killed, but they haven't produced any evidence whatsoever. So as far as I'm concerned, it's quite possible that there was no U.S. deaths in that. And the Katyusha rockets, interestingly, ISIS has been using in Syria, been caught using, so it could well have been an ISIS attack. They are supposedly the U.S. top enemy in the region until times like this when suddenly the focus shifts to Iran. But so we blamed Iran or Iranian proxies. We said, not we, so I shouldn't say that. Our government, Mike Pompeo specifically, blamed that attack on the PMU, one specific faction of the PMU called, let's see if I can find it, Kataib Hezbollah, and took out series of airstrikes at the border region of Syria and Iraq. There you can see where they occurred. It's the one border crossing that is not under U.S. control. So the U.S. has been complaining about this border crossing ever since the PMU set it up. And Israel has been carrying out airstrikes on the same location. It's a major place where the remaining ISIS cells in Syria that are attempting to cross over into Iraq to escape the Syrian army are being targeted. And it killed these, I think, 5 different locations. You can see before and after photos there. 5 different locations the U.S. airstrikes targeted on the 29th. Killed 31 people, and they weren't, only 9 were actually from the PMU, so even according to their own narrative that the PMU are Iranian proxies, they're actually a wing of the Iraqi military. They're under control of Baghdad. They were trained by Iran to fight ISIS, and that was their main job, still is fighting ISIS. That's why so many of them are in the border region here in Syria. But it seems that the U.S. is punishing all the fighters in the region that are crushing ISIS. Seems to be what's going on here, as far as I can tell. So obviously this attack, like I said, only 9 were PMU. The rest were Iraqi border police and just normal Iraqi soldiers. So even according to the U.S. logic that the PMU were guilty for that attack, which occurred 2 days previously, and by the way, even if the PMU had carried out the rocket attack that injured the U.S. soldiers, it was nowhere near the border. So they claim it was a self-defense and retaliation, but they didn't even target anywhere near where the attack actually happened. The rocket attacks clearly didn't happen from this area, so it seems to me that obviously this is, well, like many people are saying, punishment for those who are fighting, and also to try to get Iran into a war. So anyway, this obviously pissed off the entire Iraqi government. Here, the Iraqi foreign minister said, "We strongly condemn this aggression, say it's an example of terrorism." The Iraqi president said it was unacceptable and considered an aggressive action, violation of Iraqi sovereignty. And the Iraqi prime minister said, "We have previously confirmed our rejection of any unilateral action by the coalition forces or any other forces inside Iraq, and we consider it as a violation of Iraqi sovereignty and a dangerous escalation that threatens the security of Iraq and the region." So on top of the 31 Iraqis killed, there were, I believe, 55 or so injured. So this was major attacks. Obviously, Iraq people got angry. They said there's going to be retaliation. They said they're going to take action against the U.S. So, and then here you can see Mike Pompeo has productive calls, of course, with Netanyahu regarding this. So right after this, I forget if it was the next day or 2 days after, there were large protests at the U.S. Embassy in Iraq in response to this, demanding the U.S. leave. Said that basically enough is enough, you're killing our people, get out. And they turned violent. They stormed the embassy and set some section on fire. There were even U.S. began to evacuate their personnel. Shots were fired, probably by U.S. snipers on the roofs. And eventually the protesters pulled back when the acting prime minister ordered them to. So then the PMU spokespeople said this was just the first step, and basically the U.S. needs to leave. So then the Iraqi parliament has, of course, voted to expel U.S. forces and close airspace for the U.S.-led coalition because of this. And but so now our we're no longer there on their request to supposedly fight ISIS. We are now an occupying force. So really makes no sense why the U.S. would do this. It's certainly not in the best interest of the U.S. to do such an act. But then, following the attacks or the riots on the embassy, we also, our government also blamed those on Iran, said it was Soleimani himself who had ordered the storming of the embassy and that it was meant to kill U.S. people and so on and so forth, and Iranian proxies. And there's no way that the people who had, families of these soldiers that died in the U.S. aggression, unprovoked, absolutely unprovoked, no proof that those rockets fired were PMU, let alone had absolutely, not even within our own claims, that they had anything to do with the Iraqi police who were killed, collateral damage. Apparently U.S. doesn't care about such things, but obviously they had family members that were angry and they protested. And of course, gotta stick with the narrative that it's Iran, because it's, gotta take out Iran. That's the path the propaganda's been on. It's been building to this. Even before this attack here, this was a couple weeks before, Secretary Pompeo set the stage we strongly condemn the Iranian proxy attack that wounded 5 Iraqi soldiers near the Baghdad airport this week. It was a very similar rocket attack. Likewise, they blamed it, of course, on Iran, but it could have been ISIS, it could have been anyone. It could have been a false flag, could have been Mossad. No idea, no proof. They just claim it's Iran, and apparently that's good enough for them. They said, here's the key part, the U.S. will respond decisively if Iran or its proxies harm U.S. personnel or our Iraqi partners. And then, coincidentally, just 2 weeks later, another rocket attack on the base happened to, harm U.S. personnel. So it just seems a little convenient. So that's the backdrop. So then there were more attacks. U.S. carried out even another strike, I think, that killed 6 more people in a convoy. And then these strikes, taking out Soleimani himself and second in command of the PMU. So obviously, this has the whole region escalated, and Iran is promising a tough revenge. We'll get to that in a minute. But let's just... before we get to the president and the Pompeo's ridiculous response to, or justification, their response to this targeted assassination, this is what actually happened. The Iraqi prime minister has revealed that Soleimani arrived in Baghdad to receive de-escalation proposal from Saudi Arabia. Trump had called the prime minister and basically begged him to do something to help Iran de-escalate, to get Iran to de-escalate, because they're saying they're fearing Iran's going to retaliate. So, according to the available data, the Iranian commander arrived in Baghdad under an official request from Iraq. He was set to receive de-escalation proposals that Saudi Arabia sent to Iran via Iraq. U.S. President Donald Trump allegedly supported this idea during a phone call with the Iraq Prime Minister. So it definitely seems that Donald Trump pretty much helped get the Iraqi Prime Minister to get Soleimani to fly in just to have the opportunity to take him out. It was a trap, basically. The U.S. supposedly used this initiative to set a trap for the Iranian military commander and assassinate him. And it says here, hint, President Donald Trump spoke over the phone with the Iraqi Prime Minister on December 31st after demonstrators stormed the U.S. Embassy. So it's likely that during that phone call, he asked the Prime Minister of Iraq to do something, because Iraq's allies with Iran, do something to make sure Iran doesn't retaliate. So he had him come, and they were going to try to de-escalate the situation, because even though PMU is not a proxy of Iran, they are heavily influenced by... Soleimani holds heavy sway in the region. He's one of the most respected leaders in the anti-Zionist axis of resistance, as they call themselves. So here's the tweet. We have learned today from Iraq Prime Minister Abdel Mahdi how Donald Trump uses diplomacy. U.S. asked Iraq to mediate with Iran. Iraq Prime Minister asks Qassam Soleimani to come and talk to him and give him the answer to the mediation. Trump and co. assassinate an envoy at the airport. So that's what happened. Now let's see how the president responds.
Last night, at my direction, the United States military successfully executed a flawless precision strike that killed the #1 terrorist anywhere in the world.
Yep, #1 terrorist anywhere in the world. It's a little ridiculous to say that, and I don't know if a flawless execution, I'm considering it killed, I think, 5 non-targets, or at least 5 collateral damage that were not commanders of the PMU or of the Iranian Quds Force.
Qassam Soleimani. Soleimani was plotting imminent and sinister attacks on American diplomats and military personnel.
Sinister.
But we caught him in the act.
Yes, we caught him in the act of planning sinister attacks on our forces in the region. He was coming to accept, peace, to help de-escalation plan. He was gonna join in with this de-escalation plan, but sinister plans to harm U.S. personnel when he is actually coming to the region to help de-escalate the situation. It's ridiculous.
And terminated him.
Terminated.
Under my leadership, America's policy is unambiguous to terrorists who harm or intend to harm any American.
Except ISIS.
We will find you. We will eliminate you. We will always protect our diplomats, service members, all Americans, and our allies.
And our allies. See, he says he's calling Iraq allies, but they have asked us now, right after this, the parliament, not unanimously, but they overwhelmingly voted that we need to get out. So we're not their allies anymore. We're an occupying force. They claim, people like him claim that Iraqis are sick of the Iranian meddling, but they're in reality sick of the U.S. occupation and unprovoked attacks on their people, and helping Israel do the same thing. Israel carried out multiple attacks on that same border crossing. So there shouldn't be any real surprise who's really behind this escalation. We'll get to in a minute, but it's not in the U.S. best interest, that's for sure.
For years, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and its ruthless Quds force,
killing those
under
ISIS
Soleimani's
terrorists.
leadership, has targeted, injured, and murdered hundreds of American civilians and servicemen.
Is that so? Hundreds? Any proof for that? What is he even talking about? I mean, he doesn't tell us.
The recent attacks on U.S. targets in Iraq, including rocket strikes that killed an American and injured...
Still no proof that there was actually an American killed, and definitely, absolutely no proof that Soleimani had anything to do with it, even if the PMU did it, that Soleimani's not the commander of the PMU. They take their orders from Baghdad. So this is absolute propaganda.
American servicemen very badly, as well as a violent assault on our embassy in Baghdad.
Again, he did not command those people to go out there and get angry because their own brothers had been killed by U.S. strikes. That was the people getting angry. There were even Iraqi members of parliament taking part. The whole Iraq, the government, the people, the PMU, the normal military, they're all getting fed up with what Israel and the U.S. is doing over there, continually attacking them.
Were carried out at the direction of Soleimani.
Nope. It's a lie.
Soleimani made the death of innocent people his sick passion, contributing to terrorist plots at people his sick Soleimani. Soleimani made the death of innocent people his sick passion.
Yes, he made it his sick passion, although he had done successfully, helped crush ISIS terrorists, but just killing innocent people, his sick passion. I don't know what this character right here has to say about his ally Saudi Arabia and the hundreds of thousands of Yemeni civilians that have been killed with our own bombs in many cases, and under our direct authority, the U.S.-led Saudi coalition genocide of Yemenis. That to me seems a little bit more like a sick passion, but maybe that's just me. So then Pompeo also has some words to say.
Well, Brian, good morning. President Trump made the decision, a serious decision, which was necessary. There was an imminent attack.
Yeah, imminent attack. Where's the evidence? Well, there is no evidence, but it was imminent.
The orchestrator, the primary motivator for the attack was Qassam Soleimani, attempted to disrupt that plot. You all have been talking this morning about the history of who Qassam Soleimani is.
Yep, killing those ISIS terrorists, can't have that. There are useful proxies in the region, and if they weren't there, we wouldn't have an excuse to occupy Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, and so on and so forth.
He's got hundreds of American lives, blood on his hands.
Again, same thing Trump said, hundreds of American lives. What in the hell is he talking about? What are these hundreds? Where are these hundreds of Americans that he's killed? Is he talking about back when we invaded Iraq? Is that what he's talking about? That he helped train some... That he was allied with the Iraqi militias that were fighting the U.S. occupation when we first invaded back in 2003? Is that what I'm honestly not sure what he's referring to, but it's just baseless claims. It's not surprising.
But what was sitting before us was his travels throughout the region and his efforts to make a significant strike against Americans. There would have been many Muslims killed as well, Iraqis, people in other countries as well. It was a strike that was aimed at both disrupting that plot, deterring further aggression. We hope setting the conditions for de-escalation as well.
Well, that's ridiculous. It wouldn't deter any future plots if you kill him. You can't be the plots wouldn't be deterred. They couldn't happen anymore. He's dead. It's absolute lies. They're not trying to deter anything. They're trying to assassinate a commander of the Quds Force, which has been on the Israeli hit list for years, acting as Israelis' puppets is what we're doing.
Right. The Pentagon did release a statement that one of the reasons that he was taken out now was because he was planning more attacks on Americans. What can you tell us about that generally?
Steve, I can't say much more, but you need not look any further back than just the last few months. Dozens and dozens of attacks against American and allied interests throughout the region by Iran and its proxies.
He's referring here to the 12 or so rocket attacks on Iraqi bases, which none of them have they proved actually were carried out by the PMU, and they still haven't linked the PMU as being actually directly controlled by Soleimani, which is their main narrative. So again, lies, lies, lies. Shouldn't be really that surprising considering
when I was a cadet, what's
his own admission.
West Point? You will not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It was like we had entire training courses.
Who knows why they're applauding at that? I mean, that's sick. He's the former CIA director, and he's saying they have entire training courses teaching you to lie, cheat, and to steal, and that he did it. We lied, we cheated, we stole as the commander. Or as the CIA director, he's admitting he's a liar, he's a cheat, he's a thief. So obviously he's lying when he says that Soleimani is the #1 terrorist and blood on his hands and the whole plot. There was no plot to disrupt. The real plot was luring him in so they could assassinate him on behalf of Israel. It's no surprise that this is from Netanyahu. So Netanyahu's got an election coming up, and this is an opinion from Haaretz. This is written by an Israeli. Netanyahu should not be allowed to start a war with Iran to save himself, and that's exactly what he's been trying to do. The prime minister needs a win in the next elections, and initiating a major conflict with Iran may be his only hope to convince Israelis that there is no alternative to his leadership. Here's the picture of the cartoon that convinced Donald Trump to pull out of the nuclear deal, and that started this whole escalation with Iran going back months. All started with this. It started well before that, actually, but started with this. Started way long ago. Can hear him here.
Obviously, we'd like to see a regime change, at least I would, in Iran, just as I would like to see in Iraq. The question now is a practical question. What is the best place to proceed? It's not a question of whether Iraq's regime should be taken out, but when should it be taken out? It's not a question of whether you'd like to see a regime change in Iran, but how to achieve it. Iran has...
Yep. So it's not a matter of when, it's how. It's not a matter of if, it's when we're going to do it. When and how are we going to do it? So this has been a long time in the planning. This was just one of the big steps along the way. He's the same man who convinced a lot of basically the invasion of Iraq that they had weapons of mass destruction. No weapons of mass destruction were ever found, because it's a lie, because he's a liar. Zionist liar, lies himself into wars. Same with this, it's all a lie. They aren't enriching uranium above 5-10%. They need 90% or higher to make a nuclear bomb. They're not seeking a nuclear bomb. And this guy who has, 400 nukes, shouldn't be one to talk, even if they were. But so, also here's from, I believe, May, Netanyahu's Iran dilemma, getting Trump to act without putting Israel on the front line. So see, this has been, in the planning quite a while. It's obviously not in the U.S. best interest. It puts U.S. interest at risk in the region. Donald Trump had to know that targeting this man of all people and assassinating him in such a fashion as he did, he wasn't secretly flying. It was an open flight plan. It was well known. It's not like we had this secret intelligence. Although in another interview, I don't think I have it up, but Mike Pompeo said they had some special intelligence, and I'm sure that intelligence came from Israel if they're going to cite that. But there was no need for intelligence. It was an open flight plan. He wasn't hiding his flight there. It was pretty much based on the request of Donald Trump to the Iraqi prime minister. So obviously this is not good, and I'm a little surprised Trump went this far, but he had to know that doing this would cause them to retaliate. So, of course, they're going to threaten to retaliate. And what does Donald Trump say? He was already attacking our embassy, no evidence, and preparing for additional hits on other locations, no evidence. Iran has been nothing but problems for many years. I don't know what problems they've been. They haven't invaded another country in 300 years, but we've invaded Afghanistan, Libya, Iraq, Syria. We've supported the terrorists in Syria, and currently we're doing this in Iraq and Iran. So I'm not sure what he's talking about. Iran's been the problem. We're the one that have put sanctions that are starving the Iranians right now. That's an act of war. We've been putting sanctions on them for months after we withdrew from the nuclear deal. That was kind of the stage 2 after withdrawing from the nuclear deal, was all the sanctions. We've been at war with Iran already. They've just been they've refrained themselves. So he goes on, Iran has been nothing but problems. Let this serve as a warning, all caps, that if Iran strikes any Americans or American assets, we have targeted 52 Iranian sites, representing the 52 American hostages taken by Iran many years ago when they overthrew the U.S. puppet Shah. Some at a very high level and important to Iran in the Iranian cultural sites. That's a war crime, and those targets and Iran itself will be hit very fast and very hard. The U.S. wants no more threats. Then why on earth did we assassinate their top general if we don't want threats of them attack? I mean, this is goading them into a war and then saying, don't you dare fight back. We're going to keep taking you out, but don't you do anything of it. It's ridiculous. Anyway, that's not all. Most recently, I think just 6 hours ago, breaking news here, these media posts will serve as notification to the United States Congress that should Iran strike any U.S. person or target, the United States will quickly and fully strike back, and perhaps in a disproportionate manner. Such legal notice is not required, not by me, not by the president, but is given nevertheless. Gotta pretend like we're a democracy. Gotta give it as a courtesy. Pretend like Congress has any say in this matter, even though the Constitution says can't have any war without congressional declaration, and the U.S. has no mandate to fight Iran in the region. But we just sending over 4,000 more troops to Iraq right after they demand that we leave. We're sending more troops. So obviously there's going to be some consequences. This isn't going to go unchecked. This, I think, is the straw that broke the camel's back. They're going to retaliate. There's no doubt about it. Iran says its response to assassination of Soleimani will be against military sites. So they don't want to kill American diplomats. They don't want to kill American civilians. They just want to kill the forces that keep sanctioning them and that keep occupying Iraq and supporting ISIS and so on and so forth. And this is what the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, said. Let me tell you one thing. Our leadership has officially announced that we have never been seeking war and will not be seeking war. I guess this is what Major General Hossein Dagan said. Sorry, he's the military advisor to the Supreme Leader, Khamenei. My bad. It was America that has started the war. That's true. The sanctions are definitely an act of war. And obviously this attack is another blatant act of war. Therefore, they should accept appropriate reactions to their actions. Seems logical to me. The only thing that can end this period of war is for the Americans to receive a blow that is equal to the blow they have inflicted. Afterward, they should not seek a new cycle. So basically, there will be retaliation. It will be equal to what we have done to them. So we can maybe expect 30 to 40 targets to be taken out, is what they're implying. And then if we do nothing after that, we can call it even, and that'll be the end of it. Of course, as you just saw with Donald Trump, that's not the case. And he knows that they're going to do something. This is obviously goading them into war. This is provoking a war. It's blatantly obvious that this is an intentional provocation to get the war with Iran that they've been pushing for years. Then here's the tweet we already read. The Major General called those threats ridiculous and absurd, because they are. They're ridiculous and absurd, and sadly, they're probably likely quite possible. I mean, look what we're doing now. This wasn't all. There has been yet another attack, killing 5 more Iraqis along the border, same border region. An airstrike on the Iraqi-Syrian border and inside Syrian territory was reported by Al-Mayadeen, citing sources that claimed that forces deployed at the border made the security alert. Local media claim, citing sources, that the new airstrikes were targeting installations of Iraq's militia Kataib Hezbollah in the Al-Qaim region on the Iraqi-Syrian border. So the same faction that we blamed for, the same PMU faction that the U.S. blamed for the rocket attacks that may or may not have killed a U.S. mercenary, but injured a few U.S. soldiers. Unconfirmed reports claim that at least 5 people were killed in the U.S. strike targeting Imam Ali military base. The airstrike comes on the heels of the previous attacks on Saturday that were reportedly carried out by U.S. forces in Iraq targeting various military installations of the local militia. So they already attacked yesterday. I've kind of lost count at this point how many attacks they've carried out, but they already did more wide-scale attacks on Saturday. Then this was at the end of the day, even more attacks. So of course, the group warns Iraqi troops to stay away from U.S. bases. Obviously, there's some plans to retaliate. They called on the Iraqi forces to move away from American bases in the country, apparently in preparation for a response to the U.S. raids on the positions recently, in addition to the killing of the deputy chief of the organization, Abu Mahdi al-Mandas, in a raid and possibly also having to do with Soleimani. A statement issued by the group said, "The brothers in the Iraqi security services must move away from the bases of the American enemy for a distance of no less than 1,000 meters starting on Sunday evening." So that's today. So we can expect probably that there'll be new attacks. This is talking about a new attack was reported along the border. It's unconfirmed at this point who carried out the attacks. The U.S. didn't take responsibility for this, so it's quite possible those ones were actually Israeli strikes. No idea. But just before those strikes, the Israeli warplanes were spotted along the southern Hezbollah border, near the border with Syria. So it is possible that Israel carried out those strikes. Equally possible that the U.S. carried them out like they've been doing the past 4 days. So it appears that the beginning of these attacks by the PMUs has begun. It's reporting that loud explosions and sirens have been reported in the Iraq capital, heavily fortified green zone housing foreign embassies, including the American diplomatic missions. Several rockets hit the green zone not far from the American embassy, Reuters reported, citing witnesses on the ground. Loud sirens can be heard. Another attack on Saturday, 2 rockets also hit an area not far from the American diplomatic mission, and mortar shells also landed in a nearby city district. So it's possible that PMUs are taking actions. It's also possible that these are more false flags. Really no way to know for sure until we would know for sure if the PMU groups took responsibility, which they did. They said that they were a part of the storming of the embassy. So it's likely that if they carried these out, they'll eventually take responsibility for them. That this is just from today. So we've got here, let's see, Iran says, we already looked through this one, but it's going to possibly threaten U.S. assets in Europe, the IRGC commander says. And Syria, this is interesting, says Syria will take part in revenge. So there's definitely, they have some plans. This is definitely, it's easily be an all-out war in the region. Syria, Hezbollah, and Iran, along with other resistance factions fighting the U.S. and Israel and Saudi Arabia. Here, General Abdullah Javani revealed that Syria will play a role in the response to the execution of Soleimani. The response to the assassination of General Soleimani and revenge against America will be strong in the right time and place. And he added, Iran is serious about responding, but it is not in a rush. So this is typical for Iran. They don't always, they're not like the U.S. where they have to immediately take action to prove their power, but I'm fairly certain they will respond, and it's going to probably involve Syria, as at least this general is saying, and most certainly going to involve Hezbollah. In a statement in response to Soleimani's assassination, the chief of Hezbollah, Syed Hassan Nasrallah, said in a speech, "Those U.S. soldiers who came to our region vertical will go back from our region horizontal." When the coffins of American soldiers and officers begin to be transported to the United States, Trump and his administration will realize that they have really lost the region and will lose the elections, Nasrallah said in that same speech on Sunday evening. Sunday evening their time, so that would have been Sunday morning our time, I believe. He added that the attacks on U.S. military forces in the Middle East will be fair punishment for the crime, listing U.S. bases, naval ships, and military personnel. So just like Iran, the Lebanese Hezbollah commander Nasrallah is saying that they're going to target military targets. They're not trying to target civilians. He goes on, the targeted killing of General Soleimani and Muhandis is the beginning of a new era, not for Iraq or Iran, but for the whole region. So that, I think, is really the crux of this whole issue. The mask has come off. Everyone now can see what's going on here. They can see that the U.S. is the occupying force. They can see we're working on behalf of Israel, that this is all a Zionist agenda, and they've had enough. And it looks like Hezbollah and Iran and Syria are all going to be involved in some sort of retaliation. If that happens and Donald Trump is not, full of it, then it's going to start a war. If he targets 52 Iranian sites and responds disproportionately to, like, say, one attack or a couple attacks on U.S. bases, then that's going to start an all-out war, which I think is exactly what Netanyahu wants. He wants a full all-out war, but he wants us on the front line. He just wants to be pulling the strings and obviously involved, but not using the U.S. troops as the main force. So Elsewhere in his remarks, Nasrallah went on to say, U.S. scenarios in Syria have been foiled. It's true. Trump has abandoned the Kurds, and his decision concerning the withdrawal of American troops represents his confusion indeed. All attempts to undermine the resistance front in Lebanon and Yemen have been unsuccessful as well. It's true. All these years of the Saudi-U.S. genocide on Yemen, and still they continue to fight back, and the recent attempts by Israel to push into Lebanon failed. The Hezbollah Secretary General went on to note that Trump did not manage to impose the deal of the century, referring to the peace deal that he keeps talking about. Still hasn't happened, thanks to the Palestinian nation's steadfastness. So they know that it's the peace deal is only going to help the Israelis. It's not about peace. It's about greater Israel project. Trump was very clear. He said he wanted to wrest control over the Iraqi oil. Trump has been using Daesh, the Islamic State, as a pretext to control Iraq and its wealth. Such a scheme has failed, thanks to General Soleimani and Humandis, who fought Daesh. So again, he's saying that basically he's implying that this is punishment. They fought our proxies, and then we took them out in a targeted assassination. So yeah, that's pretty much, I think, most of what I wanted to cover. It's pretty sad that Trump's taken it this far, but for anyone that thinks that Trump is on, fighting the deep state and really wants to avoid war with Iran, just look at what he's saying. If they strike back, basically, if they respond to our ridiculous, crazy aggression, we will strike back in a disproportionate manner. So yeah, we can expect tensions to rise in the region. Who knows how exactly it'll play out, but at the very least, it looks like Iraq is... Where is this? It looks like, at the very least, the world's going to know that the U.S. now is in Iraq as an occupier. It's not there legally. It's definitely going to hurt our image. Doesn't really make any sense why we would have done all of this, but people are protesting, and this is interesting. Last thing I'll touch on. A red flag was raised over the holy dome of Jamkaran Mosque, symbolizing both blood spilled unjustly and serving as a call to avenge people who were killed in Iran during the morning of the assassination of Soleimani. This move was done for the first time in the entire history of modern Iran. It demonstrates the Iranian determination to respond to the U.S. aggression. So, like I've been saying, I don't think this is going to go unchecked. There will be response. It's looking like it's going to be from Hezbollah and from Iran and from PMU, Iraqi forces. It's already coming from all of Iraqi parliament unanimously is politically opposed now to our occupation there. Just a few days ago, there were quite a few of them that were on our side. No longer. So we pushed all of Iraq into an alliance with Iran now. So yeah. It looks like it's going to be a bigger regional war. Unfortunately, not good for anyone involved unless we can somehow peacefully expel the U.S. occupation of the region. It's doubtful that we'll go peacefully, but that's obviously would be the best thing, and maybe with enough pressure it will happen. Who knows? One last thing I'll mention is Israel made a statement in a tweet, I think about a week ago. Here, let me just go to it, show it to you really quick. Go up to my page. By the way, if you're watching this video and you appreciate this type of reporting in my videos, I have a Steemit blog, so follow me there. I also oftentimes can get a lot more posts put up with news than I'm not able to make videos. So if you follow me on Steemit, just steemit.com/@JasonLiberty. All my links to my videos are always up there, and also have many articles as well. So This was, I believe, on December 25th, so not that long ago. A Lieutenant General Aviv Kochavi, IDF Chief of the General Staff. He made a threat, basically, in this video. He goes on to make a variety of threats against civilians, against their enemies. But he says, in the next war, we will forcefully strike within urban areas. In the next war, as if it's a given that there will be a next war. And he specifically named Syria, Lebanon, and Gaza. So it's almost like it's like they were, behind this, like pretty obvious, and that they're ready. They were preparing for this coming war, and it's coming. It's coming right now, and they've already threatened Syria and Lebanon, so it makes perfect sense why Syria and Hezbollah are going to join with Iran. I mean, everyone that's opposing the U.S. intervention in the region, everyone that's fighting ISIS is being targeted by the U.S. and Israel constantly on an almost daily basis. It's gotten to the point where it's really ridiculous that our leaders can tell these people that they have blood on their hands when we're killing hundreds of people every month over there. So anyway, that's all for now. Hope you enjoyed the news. Keep your eyes open. This situation will be developing, so hopefully we can avoid a major confrontation and world war, because if this does develop into an all-out war, it's quite possible that Russia be involved with defense of Iran. Can't be certain on that, but they were just carrying out drills together in the Persian Gulf, so we will see how it plays out. Anyways, have a great week, Happy New Year, and don't fall for the lies. Till next time, this has been Jason.